Hi class, this is the video lesson for homework 15. In this section, we're solving more complicated equations using the procedures from the previous sections. The types of equations you're bound to see here are equations which require simplifying, proportions, and other equations with fractions. So here's an equation that requires simplifying on both sides. So we need to distribute 14x minus 14, and we'll distribute on the right, and we get 18 plus 6x. Now in this case, both sides are already simplified, so we're going to move to the addition property of equality. And in fact, you could add 14 to both sides, subtract 6x, subtract 14x. You have a bunch of different choices you can make. I like to, when I can, move the smaller x term, so it keeps things positive, hopefully. 14 minus 6 is 8x minus 14 equals 18. Now that I've done that, I have more terms on the left, so I will add 14 to both sides, and I get 8x equals 32. Then the last stage is to divide both sides by 8, and I get x equals 4. So we had to remove parentheses, use the addition property twice, once to move an x term and once to move the constant term, and then we use the multiplication property to finish this off. So then we're going to check if our solution works. So we have 7, 2 times 4 minus 2, 7 times 6, which is 42, that's what we get on the left. 3 times 6 plus 2 times 2, 2 times 4, times 6 plus 8, 3 times 14, and that's 42, since we got 42 for both, the correct answer. In this case, we also have to simplify both sides, but instead of distributing, we have like terms that need to be combined. So this is 2x plus 4 on the left, and then 1 plus 3x on the right. Now I'm going to use the addition property and subtract 2x from both sides. 4 equals 1 plus x. And I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides, so I've used the addition property again, and I get x equals 3. Then I need to check that. 5 times 3 plus 4 minus 3 times 3. 15 plus 4 minus 9. So that equals 10. And then we have 5 plus 3 times 3 minus 4. 5 plus 9 minus 4, which is 10. Since we got the same thing on the left and the right, 3 is the correct solution. The next type of equation we're going to work on is a proportion. A proportion has one fraction equal to another fraction. You might see it in a word problem that's something like this baking problem we have here. 3 cups of flour makes 24 cookies. How many cups of flour make 96? We can set this up as 3 is to 24 as what is to 96. So we can turn that problem into a proportion. And the technique that we're going to use is called cross multiplying. It's essentially using the multiplication property of equality twice, just in one step. So 3 times 96 equals 24 times x. 3 times 96 is 288 equals 24x. And then we're going to divide both sides by 24, and we get 12 equals x. So we'd need 12 cups of flour to make 96 cookies. Here is another proportion. So again, we will cross multiply. 4x equals 2 times 3x minus 1. Now we are going to distribute to remove parentheses. And I usually move the smaller thing, but since the right side has more terms, I'm going to move the 6x. So we get negative 6x makes negative 2x equals negative 2. Divide both sides by negative 2, and I get x equals 1. Now I'm going to check and see. On the left, I get 1/2. On the right, I get 2/4. And those are the same fraction, so 1 is correct. The last type of problem that you're going to come across is an equation that has multiple fractions, but they're not a proportion, so cross multiplying isn't a potential answer. Our goal here is going to be to multiply by the LCM or the denominator if there's only one fraction to try and eliminate fractions. So in this case, 3 is the only denominator. So I'm going to multiply each part of this by 3. Each and every term. So not just the first term, not just the one with the fraction, but each term in the problem. So this is the multiplication of equality. Multiply the equation. The 3's cancel, and so this is x, or 1x if you'd like, plus 9x. Equals negative 30. Now it looks just like the kinds of equations we had before. 10x equals negative 30. Divide by 10, and we get x equals negative 3. We can go ahead and check. What is negative 3 over 3 plus 3 times negative 3? Negative 1 plus negative 9, which is negative 10. So that is correct. Remember, each time we check it, this is something we do for ourselves to make sure we have the question right. It's not necessarily going to be something you have space to include in your answer on the computer. Here we have two denominators, a 2 and a 3. The LCM of 2 and 3, this is 2, 4, 6, 8, 3, 6, 9, 12. So the LCM is 6. So that's what I'm going to multiply each part of this expression. So 6 times x over 2 minus 6 times 1/3 equals 6 times 4. If you're using a calculator at this point, to simplify, this is like 6 divided by 2, so we get 3x. 6 divided by 3, 6 times 4. And we can add 2 to both sides because we have more terms on the left. 3x equals 26. Divide both sides by 3. X equals 26/3. Remember, look at how it wants your answer. If it says a fraction or an integer, then you're going to want to leave the 26/3 as your answer. You're not going to want to use a decimal, but you may be okay with using a decimal as your check. So in this case, we have 26/3 over 2 minus 1/3. 26 over 6 minus 2 over 6, 24 over 6, which is 4. And again, that's going to be easier to check using decimals on your calculator probably than manipulating the fractions. Let me know if you have any other questions. At this point, you should be able to solve any kind of linear equation that you would come across using any of these steps. You will on the test be required to write out your explanations. The last section of the book is homework 16, which is all about application problems. We're going to have 2 video lessons on that, separating it into 2 different classes of problems.